Welcome back to the Postpartum Plan podcast. This podcast is designed to support and empower you through postpartum. Whether you're expecting, in the early postpartum days, or beyond, this space is for you. I'm your host, Madison Fugere, a dedicated postpartum doula and pediatric sleep consultant, striving to help parents feel confident and supported in their parenting journey. Each week, I'm sharing practical tips and expert advice to help you navigate all the postpartum things with confidence. Well, as much confidence as you can. Let's embark on this journey together, making your parenthood as serene and supportive as possible. Todd is the husband of an amazingly talented and hardworking woman, Alicia. Todd and Alicia are both the proud parents of two beautiful children, ages 4.5 and 15 months, living in the suburban mecca of Wilmington, Massachusetts. Alicia is Todd's North Star and the conductor of the house's symphony, so to speak. Todd is a talent attraction leader at a global software company by day and a super dad by nights and weekends. Todd prides himself on his encyclopedic knowledge of superhero lore and the ability to make a fort or ramp out of almost anything, and to spontaneously tell and make up some children's stories at his will. Todd is a past postpartum client of mine and an amazing person, and I am so excited to have him on today's podcast, or so we've liked to call it, our Toddcast. So I can't wait. So let's get into it. Hi, Todd. Thank you so much for joining me.
My absolute pleasure.
I'm so excited.
Couldn't wait to do this.
Oh, it's so good. We were just saying before I clicked record that it's going to be so nice to have a dad's perspective on all of this because, I've had professionals on, I've had people come on and tell their birth and postpartum stories, but to have a partner's perspective rather than a mom telling their partner's perspective is going to be really great.
We're in the thick of it, though we don't deal with the brunt of it.
Right.
But we are there. Right.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give you the woe is me story from sitting in the hospital and they have the most uncomfortable chairs and couches for the partner to lay on. It's I got a bad back. How long do you expect me to be here?
Right.
But at the same time, we have our own trials and tribulations, and certainly there's obviously another side to the coin. So Absolutely. Happy to chat with you about it.
Absolutely. So for those of y'all listening, I had the absolute pleasure of hanging out with the whole Kaylor family when little Miss decided to join the fam over a year ago now, which is absolutely crazy.
15 months.
Oh, I can't. And so it's been so great to keep in touch and being able to have you come on and share what it's like to, the whole 9 yards of it, right? Having the first and then adding a second and navigating what that's like the first time around. I know it was really hard for you guys. Sure. And so getting that postpartum support that second time was needed to happen. So I'm glad that we were able to, work together and find you guys that support. And yeah, I'd love to do you want to tell everybody a little bit about you, your family, kind of just give us the whole rundown?
Sure. So, I'm an older dad. I'm in my late 40s, though I have wonderfully vampiric skin. I'm very fair, so I don't get tons of sun, so I don't wrinkle terribly. My wife is going to be don't turn it into a being about you. But very hardworking professional, got married later in life. So Alicia and I met when I just turned 40, a little bit before that. And Alicia's about 4.5, 5 years younger than I am. And we were both ready for the next stages in our life. So we got, it was a whirlwind romance. She didn't really like me at first. I think everyone has this story. It's so cliched. She'll say I chased forever. I really didn't. But regardless,
I don't know. I've heard her tell me that story.
Yeah, she has her very own jilted perspective of what went down, but that's fine. I'm happy to do it. But honestly, within 5 months of us dating, I asked her to marry me and couldn't have been happier with the choice that I made. I told, my family loved to joke that they didn't think I was ever going to get married. And I was just waiting for the right one.
Yeah.
And it just took a little bit longer. So our romance blossomed very fast. We were married within a year of getting engaged. We had a house within 6 months of getting married. And, we went through the very painful for her process of IVF. Mm-hmm. And, she had egg retrieval and shots, and I had to wear the different persona because I hate needles. So I had to be And she's like, why are you whining? Like, I'm the one who gets the
Right.
shot. I'm like, but giving it is like a whole different thing. Like,
Yeah.
so we did that, and we had our first child, Colton, 9 months, around about 9, 10 months later after starting that treatment.
Yep.
And he was raised in the pandemic. So when he was 8 months, the world shut down, and geez, we never knew parenting could be such an adventure. But when you're trying to
Right.
work full time from home, you got a spouse who works full time from home, and you just pass the kid around like a hot potato all day.
Yeah.
Um, and then we decided, shortly after the pandemic kind of ended, we'd give it us another go, throw another kid into the mix. So we used one of our many embryos, and we ended up having Rowan about 9, 10 months later. So, everyone who told me one is manageable, two is chaos was 1000% correct.
Right.
We went from playing zone defense where we
Yep.
could give each other maybe 2, 3 hours
Tap in,
alone
tap
to
out.
like, wow, we're playing man on now. And
Yep.
Colton is definitely a little boy, likes little boy things. He runs from 6 a.m. till 8 p.m. Rowan is much chiller. I think that may have something to do with your influence, because you were pretty chill with her. But again, I think we work very fast paced, stressful corporate jobs.
Right.
And the thing that I've loved, particularly because I'm in a leadership role, was being able to use an outside resource like yourself to help take some of at least the figurative sting out of it for me, and then
Right.
the literal sting out of it for Alicia, who had two C-sections. Certainly, we learned the first time that was very hard for her to get up and manage a child at night. Luckily,
Yeah.
Rowan was a much better sleeper than Colton was.
Oh, the
So she
stories
made
I
it.
heard about Colton. My heart breaks that I didn't know y'all
Yeah,
back
he
then.
he's he slept on my chest for about 2 years in a recliner. And to this day, I think he probably has anxiety around being separated from me at night
No.
because he was just so used to that. And it's one of those things I think I'll probably cherish. I don't cherish it so much now.
Right.
But at the same time, like being a dad with two little kids, one boy, one girl, live in a house on the cul-de-sac, it's kind of the American dream. So
Yeah.
all in all, love what I do, love who I'm with, love my children, but I'd be lying if I said any of it was ever easy.
Right, right. And
Yeah.
I think that's so true. I think that like people have such a hard time understanding that, and I just talked about this in an episode that's coming up right before this, but like that you can have two contradicting feelings about
Mm,
life and anything at the same time, right? So like you can be like, "Oh my gosh, I love what I have now. This is what I've always dreamt of." And in tandem also be like, "Oh my God, why the heck
what did I
don't
do?
you sleep? Why am I
What did
running
I why
around
how
following
did I
these
get into
children?"
this?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's very funny. Rowan less so because I think she's so easygoing, and she's funny. I mean, I think because you worked with her when she was very young, to see her evolve now when she's tired, she just
Yeah.
lays on the ground and she's
Good
like, I'm
night.
out. Colton's triggers are much different. Like you'll
Right.
see him, he gets this burst of energy, he gets the zoomies. And it's like, oh, okay. Now he's ready to kind of get wound down for sleep.
Right.
And I'll travel for work, and this, and I'll leave Alicia with the two kids, and I'll hear stories that are, wow, that's hard. I
It's a
left my
lot.
my wife in the trenches to deal with this. And I'm sitting there going, God, I miss my kids. Like I miss them.
Yeah.
And then you come back to the trauma and you're like, oh wow, why did I ever get off the plane?
It's literally
And
when people say,
it's very right. It's like you compartmentalize it
"Yep.
so that you
Yep.
can go about your life. And I
100%."
never realized what parents did, but yeah, it's very true. Like I never knew like taking an 8 hour flight to get to an office across the country and then sleep in a hotel room by myself would be like the joy of my existence.
Right.
Uh, but it is, you take the little victories when you can get them.
Yeah, it's like when people say, "Oh, I love hanging out with my kid, but when I'm playing with them, I can't wait for them to go to bed." And then the second they go to bed, you're just looking at pictures of them, right? Like it really
It's
is
really
like,
conflict when Alicia and I go out for a date. We're talking about the
how do you
kids. We're
talk about
looking at
anything
pictures of them on
else?
our phone. Like I don't know, like that's the tie that binds. And one day, look, my mom's here this week helping take care of the kids, and I have to do a little bit of work today. And it's funny. She's like, I still look at you like you look at Colton. She's like, you're 47 years old. I
Yeah.
look at you like you're 4. You were my little boy. And I was like, oh
Yeah.
wow, like that is a thing. Like, yep,
It's one of those
I
things you
I
don't
get it now.
realize.
You don't
Yeah.
get it until you're in this situation, but like I get it now.
Yeah, that's so funky. Now, you know, obviously kids have different like personalities, are going to have very different like just based off of like who they are, right? But also based off the fact that you had Colton like smack in the middle of the pandemic, right?
Hmm.
And being your first baby, so you guys are probably like, okay, how do we navigate these things, right? But
Yeah.
then the second time being in a very different situation, right? It's you have another kid that you're balancing, but you've got nighttime help and
Hmm.
you've done this before and he was going to daycare during the day. So you had like a little bit of like
Little
very
balance.
opposite situations, right?
Yeah.
Were there things that like you did one with one kiddo and not with the other that you like regret? Because we shouldn't regret things in life, but like or things that
No,
you were
you
like, oh, I'm really glad I did this or didn't do that.
yeah, your first kid is your crash test dummy. Like you experiment on all the things and you worry about, I remember hearing stories about my dad would go in and stick his finger under my nose at night to make sure I was still breathing. And I was like, that's ridiculous. I literally did that with Colton every day. Like, is he breathing? I don't know if he's breathing. I haven't seen him move. Is he in a deep sleep? So every time he stirred, I would get up. Like it was
Right,
just an instinctive thing. I think now with Rowan, and again, you had a lot to do with it, but she's also a different personality.
right.
I think we've just learned, yeah, she's gonna cry for a little while. She's got a little bit of a stuffed up nose, or she's got a little bit of an upset tummy because mommy decided black beans was a good choice for dinner. Uh, you just learn to kind of relax a little bit more and settle into it. Although, Colton still gets us up at night, so I'm kind of used to waking up at 3 in the morning with someone screaming that their nose is stuffed and they don't know how to fix it, and then refuses to blow their nose.
Right,
But again, I think it's just you learn to take everything a little bit more in stride. You learn that everything can't be this anxiety-ridden, panic-inducing moment. I think you helped a lot with that. Certainly when we had Rowan here, and I asked you a lot of questions. I was just like, hey, should I be interested in this or worry about this? And you're like, yeah, no, like it's not really a thing. And Colton was his own kid, and
right,
Rowan will be totally different. And you were absolutely right. I mean, I think what I worried about was falling back into some of those same habits because I'm like,
right.
now I got to worry if he wakes up too at night. So it's not like she and I, Alicia and I used to take turns. It was like every other night. Like, we tried the whole like, hey, you get up and then I'll get. That doesn't work because then no one sleeps. We
Yeah,
used to, Tuesday is mine, Wednesday is yours, and when we flip flop.
yeah,
Now with two kids, totally different. You're man on. I generally work with Colton at night when he's upset or something happens, and Alicia deals with Rowan. Uh, but I think the whole thing with the second kid is you learn to relax and take a breath a little bit more.
yeah.
Not that you're ever anxiety free,
Right.
because anytime they run into something or cut their head open, like you freak out. But I don't know, at least as a dad, like I definitely worry less than I
Right.
did before.
Well, and that even gets me into like this little idea of like, I don't even know if we talked about it a ton. I know I talked to Alicia about it when I was there, and I think it was when you were away that week. But talking about like the idea that we know that postpartum like depression and anxiety exists for women, but like the fact that like those same things can exist for men too. And I remember Alicia talking to me at one point and being like, oh, I just think Todd like seems really stressed out. And I was like, well, like it could be like a postpartum anxiety thing. Like
Mm,
it's something that I think people don't realize can be in existence. And
right.
like it's something that I think people are like, oh, well, they gave birth, they are doing this and doing that. So like I shouldn't be complaining about how I'm feeling, right? Do you
Yeah, and
ever feel
there's
like you felt like that?
there's definitely some of that. I mean, I have a clinical anxiety anyway that I've had since I was a kid, right? And I think then, you go through and there's something to be said for people who got married younger, right? Because you have less, I think, mental autonomy if you get married a little bit earlier in your life. I mean, you don't have to be married. If you're just with a partner and you start a family, um, I had been so autonomous for decades
Right.
that reverting back to the idea that I've got to be around for someone else to lean on and then I've got to take care of people who can't take care of themselves was a lot. It's just like my mom always likes to laugh. She's like, you guys did a bunch of stuff in like 5 years,
Yeah.
of meeting each other. And
Right.
I was like, yeah, like it came at me hot and heavy, right? And I think, the postpartum stuff was more about like that loss of autonomy, like that
Yeah.
loss of time. For me, I remember saying, I think I even said it to you, like I feel like I've lost myself somewhere in there.
Right.
I don't think the pandemic helped because you
No,
couldn't go anywhere, right? And
definitely
it's just
not.
like, and for me, like my passion is actually like exercise. Like I like to exercise. And I just found myself getting hurt every time I was lifting weights or doing stuff on my own. And that was also depressing because now you're, physically incapacitated. You're taking care of other people. You need to worry about your wife. You need to worry about your job. And you need to worry about all the financial things that
There's
just
so
keep going
much.
on in your household. And I always love seeing the memes like adulting. I give 1 star. Like it would definitely not
Ditto.
recommend it. It's like, wow, I don't know how my parents really did this. Like
Right.
this is a lot. And trust me, you're way younger than I am. So it changes completely the older you get, the more stuff you have and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I think the dad's journey is now more important than the mom's, but it's certainly not less important.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I would say for any dads that you have that might listen to this.
Yeah.
It's not easy, and I did feel the I shouldn't complain a lot. Although Alicia would probably say, "And you complained anyway. Good for you." And she's not wrong. She wouldn't be wrong. I mean, I just
Because you need
I'm
to.
very
Well,
out.
and it's not that you deserve to feel however you're feeling still,
Yep,
too, right?
yep,
Yeah.
exactly. I think it's one of those things that it's an adjustment for any parent. Doesn't matter how old you are. There's this complete loss of autonomy that everyone goes through, and it's just like, oh wow, I just can't go out and stay out all night, or like if I drink 2 beers at a party, like I might not wake up if I hear the baby crying. So I can't do that. I
Right.
mean, I went to a playoff party with my friends for the NFL a few weeks ago, and like, you drinking? I'm like, no, I brought some Diet Coke, so I'll be fine. And they're like, Russ? I'm like, I got to get up tonight. I was like, I know I will, and I won't wake up, and I won't feel good if I drink, so I'm not going to drink.
Right. Right. It is. It's
Look,
this idea of
minor
like having
sacrifices.
to put, yeah, like having to put other people before yourself. And I think that that's something that like people expect to do when you have children, but like the extent to which that you're having to do that, you don't
Oh, you could say it,
realize.
but like, and it makes, look, because I was single for so long, I'm probably very selfish. And I probably don't see it as selfishness
Right.
because
Right.
I was supporting myself. When you have kids, the shift immediately comes. And you'll realize it pretty quickly when you're not doing your part. So yeah, it's definitely, it's not a loss of autonomy. It's a change or an evolution that you have as just a human being. And it's
Yeah.
like you've taken on a new role and you're a parent now. So it's not, you didn't lose yourself, you just took on a different role.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that it's so interesting just to look back at like all the different things too, right? Like being able to recognize that there are things that change and that makes you, see things differently and like the world is probably seen so differently now than it was for you 5 years ago, right?
I never thought I'd be in line at the grocery store buying feminine hygiene products, but here I am. Like literally
Right.
trying to like not linger in front of that row too long because for some reason I feel like it looks creepy. Maybe women respect me more for being in front of that section, picking
Right.
out the stuff that my wife has on the list. But I'm like, I don't know that I'll ever get over the humiliation that I
Right.
know I feel being there. But I'll do it because
Right.
it's for my family, right? I'm
You
like, I'm here. I'm
learn.
like, I'm doing it for my family, and I'll
Yeah.
take care of it because that's what dads do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love it. Now, I mean, we know that there's things that happen in parenthood that are, gotta be just all the stress in the world, right? But then there's those moments that are like absolutely amazing. So it all kind of makes up for one another.
Oh,
Is there like,
Rowan walked, a
yep.
month, maybe 3, 4 weeks ago. No, it's probably closer to 5 weeks now. And I was like, coolest thing ever because I saw this thing on Instagram. If you put up like something the size of a golf ball in each one of a baby's hands, they immediately find equilibrium. And I saw it and I was like, let's try it. And she's like, Alicia's like, I want her to walk. I go, watch this. I'm gonna get her to walk. I give her a ball in each hand. She starts walking. I'm like, I'm the maestro. Like I just
Oh
make this
my
stuff happen.
gosh.
It was really cool. And even Colton was
Oh.
like, wow, dad, that was like magic. And I was like, I'm magic. No big deal.
now
But like
now
that
she
was
needs
one
her
of those.
magic balls in her hands to walk.
Now she needs like a helmet and shoulder pads because her brother just like tackles her. But
Oh my
there are
gosh.
those little moments, or like when you see the light bulb come on
Yeah.
in your kid's face when they couldn't do something yesterday, but they can do it today. Uh, those are the little things that kind of keep you going. Like they're little tiny victories, and you're just so proud of them. Like Colton is 4.5 now, and I started teaching him how to tell jokes. So we got him a big book of dad jokes.
Oh my
And it's like,
gosh.
I'm a dad now. So I'm like, yeah, I kind of get into these. And watching him deliver a joke so pristinely and so well timed with inflection at the right point. Like
Oh
he
my
had a crowd of
gosh.
people in Heavenly Donuts going like 2 weeks ago telling dad jokes, and like he got applause on the way out. Like that was a proud moment for me,
Oh my
right? Like that's when
gosh.
you know your dad when your daddom is working.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's too funny. And I can totally picture him doing it. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's amazing. Now, if you kind of like flash back to like the early postpartum days, are there things that you think back to that you were like, wow, I was like struggling in the moment and like thought I wasn't doing anything right, but like now I can see that I was, or like something back then that you were like, oh, that was something little I did and didn't realize how much of an impact it was helping, me or Alicia or the
Yeah,
babies.
you know, hopefully Alicia sees it this way. I think it's very hard when you look at it through the lens of you're being post-surgical of
Right.
all things, and then just being exhausted, being flooded with hormones. Like I know I used to get, like I said, I used to get up with Colton all the time because he did have reflux that was undiagnosed for probably the first 3 or 4 months, and we just couldn't figure out why he wanted to sleep, why he didn't sleep,
Yeah.
and that he would only sleep on someone's chest. I mean, I just it went by really quick, but like pretty soon he was like 2 years old and he could climb off my chest and into his bed. And he's like, Daddy, I want to lay down. And he was medicated at that point for that. Um, but I know that would have been a much different story if I had been a father from a different generation, which is like, this isn't my problem. I'm going to
Yeah.
sleep. I have work tomorrow. It's like, look, if Alicia and if Alicia didn't work, maybe I would feel slightly different, though probably no less compelled because it was my kid. It was my
Right.
son. I didn't want to see him in pain. So sleeping in that chair, as much as I maybe grumbled about it in the moment, I silently kind of enjoyed.
Yeah.
And I do know that took a lot of pressure off of Alicia because I was very worried about her sleep. Particularly going through all the physical and emotional changes that you go through. I know that that was one of those things that I'll look back on. And when he's 17 and he, wants to sleep till 4 p.m., I'll go in with the garbage can and the baton and start being like, hey, man, you didn't let me sleep at all. So here's your time to get up. But that was one of those things that, I didn't feel like I was necessarily doing a ton of stuff right. But I know if I could give my partner a little bit of relief at night so she could sleep, knowing that we were
Yeah.
going to have to go to work the next day, that made me feel good.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's something that I think I love that in the moment you're like, yeah, no, this was probably really crappy in the moment. And like you were
Yeah.
probably not getting good sleep and you were
No.
all learning how to function now off of minuscule amounts of like sleep, especially when your sleep's not connected. It's like so different from getting
No,
your
and
like solid
and
eight
and what's
hours,
so
right?
yeah, and what's so funny is because I told you before, I'm kind of a physical fitness nut, and I was really lean and in really good shape, and honestly through the first year of marriage, and then we had a kid, and it's just like, well, Alicia was obviously pregnant, so you do sympathy eat with
Yep.
your partner because they're like, hey, I want ice cream, and I'm like, ice cream sounds good
Okay.
to me. And by the time Colton was born and we ended up in the pandemic, I think she and I was probably up 30 pounds. And like that was a big, like you could feel it when you get older, you feel it in your joints. It's so cliche to say it, but you really can. And for me, it was just like trying to find that way back to even just a healthy sense of your body. Alicia and I have both worked on that a lot over the last couple of years with varying results.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I think, having that kid really just does help you learn how to manage your time and manage your priorities. It's just like, yeah, I can't get that workout in for an hour and a half because that used to. Now I got to find a half hour, and it's like,
Right.
and I've found it, but it's not the same, and you just learn how to adjust on the fly. So again, it's not roses all the time, but at the same time, it's filled with other little surprises that you probably didn't even know would bring you joy, and they do.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Now, I try to ask people, granted I always forget to ask, um, is there anything like I used to say, do you have like one baby product or item or
Ooh.
thing that you would, or even like some people come on and I swear it makes it look like I'm paying people to say that their service that they would do again is to hire a postpartum doula. But like,
Yes.
if you had to do something over, like what would you totally get? And maybe even what would you totally not get? And then like also if you had to share like one piece of advice with like families, parents, new parents, what would you tell them?
Sure. First of all, and again, not to blow sunshine up your keister, because I was very dubious about the cost. And again, the
Uh-huh.
cost on its surface is like, what?
Yeah.
At the same time, I remember how hard a time Alicia had when Colton was born. And
Right.
I was just like, I'm not doing that again. Um, so you were worth every nickel, and I probably would have paid double for what you offered. Now that I said it, but you can't, no take backsies. Um, so you were absolutely 1000% worth it. And I would recommend you wholeheartedly to anyone who has this experience. And it's, again, not to make you feel amazing, but you should. But then, just like normal products that have made, like shushers, like that magical little like shh, and it just shushes it for you. I'm like, amazing.
Sure.
I'm a very big fan of basic like Amazon Alexa smart speakers to just like play white noise or to play meditation music is our new favorite thing for certainly for Colton.
Nice.
And like those are really, really cheap and easy to set up. And then as far as, we have a lot of lotions and creams here. I'm a big fan of the Johnson and Johnson like lavender bath. It does actually take the edge off of these kids at the end of the night. We also use like the baby lavender lotion,
Yep.
which is great. And actually, when you get into toddlerhood, they do start getting muscle cramps and Charlie horses. My massage therapist turned me on to magnesium foam that you can
Huh.
rub on people's legs that helps their muscles not cramp in the middle of the night. So kids are prone to growing pains. That's
Yeah.
been definitely one of my favorite things in the last several years. But I mean, God, I could list a million things that made our lives. Baby Brezza's amazing, particularly if your kid isn't going to bottle feed or isn't going to breastfeed. Like the the Brezza products are amazing. We loved them. You used them here. We had everything that you could get, the steamers and whatever. I think it's just a matter of finding stuff that works for you and your lifestyle. We had everything.
Absolutely.
That's what worked for our lifestyle.
Right. Hey, if you find what works and you go with it, I love that. Yeah. Would there be any like things that you haven't mentioned that you would tell first time parents if they were listening? I know you've given lots of tidbits of
Your
good info, but
Yeah, it's like don't look everything up on the internet. What you
don't do it.
Google is like, I remember a doctor telling me a long time ago, like if you ever get some kind of weird bump or whatever, don't Google it. It's
No.
like they always give you the worst case scenario. So it's like,
Yep.
find a fellow group of parents that you trust, or you're invariably someone has a friend who's a nurse or a doctor. I am lucky in that my wife's sister-in-law runs the pediatric emergency at MGH, and one of my best friends from high school ended up becoming a pediatrician and runs the NYU Medical Center for Pediatrics. So
Oh
it's like
my
I ended up with
gosh.
like the lottery for that. But I think finding a friend or you know a, a a networked person who can maybe alleviate some of your fears about what's happening with your kid. And honestly, therapy. Like I just started doing therapy in the last like 6 months, and trust me, I am a very old world macho type of guy. Like therapy, that's for sissies. I actually learned a lot about myself by doing that, and learned about what some of my strengths are, and learned clearly about not what weaknesses are, but what areas of opportunity I have
Yeah.
to potentially do that. And I think that's particularly for guys, like open yourself up to that possibility because it was actually pretty good. It was a good
Absolutely.
thing to do, and I think just be kind to yourself. Like look, your first one could make a lot of mistakes with the first one. They're kind of the guinea pig, and then hopefully by the second one, or if you have more than that, you've learned not to worry as much and just kind of enjoy the ride because they
Yeah.
are very malleable. They
Oh,
heal
totally.
quickly, and I think we're all worried that they're going to break, and they won't. They won't.
Yeah. I love that. Well, thank you for joining me. I feel like all the things and yeah, it's just so great to get that other perspective and to get it from anybody would be great, but to have it from you is amazing because I think that you really do like don't sugarcoat things when they don't need to be and tell it to it raw and real, right? But I
No, it's
love
hard.
that.
This stuff is hard. I mean, it's hard. It's not for the faint of heart. If everyone could have a kid and raise them successfully, probably everyone would, but it's definitely not easy. But having people like you in the network of support was one of those things that, like I said, I approached it from probably, I hate to sound traditionally sexist, but I'm not trying to. It's like I looked at it like my dad would look at it, like it cost what?
You're
And
right.
it's just like, oh, like what you don't realize. once you're in it is, oh, that's an investment. Like that's
Right.
honestly a service that
Absolutely.
is, I would honestly say it's like, geez, I wonder if healthcare insurance companies pay for that. Probably in some situations they might, or it might be a company benefit. Like
Sometimes
it
like
is
Mass
something that,
Health just recently started covering some of it, which
well,
is
it was
really
something that
exciting.
I went back to work, and I went back to my comp and benefits person and said how
Yeah.
wonderful this experience was. And I go, this would be a great benefit if our company would help supplement someone's use of an overnight doula.
Yeah.
I was like, it made all the difference for my wife and her
Yeah.
ability to recover and just kind of like get back on her feet. Like it's hard with two, but at least you enabled her to get that push that allowed her to heal and then allowed her to kind of jump back into her life with a minimal fuss.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate all the kind words so much.
Well, we love you, Maddie. You got a place here anytime you want.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Postpartum Plan podcast. I hope that today's episode brought you support, relatability, and valuable insight. Remember, you're not alone on this journey. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and leave a review and share with any of your prenatal and postpartum friends and family. Your feedback helps us reach more parents seeking support. And if you're looking for additional resources, please feel free to connect via Instagram at Serene Moments Doula for constant information, tips, and tricks, or check out my website, www.serenemomentsdoula.com. See you next week.